Well, museums across the country are collaborating to celebrate International Museum Day from today until the 25th of May. The day is celebrated annually on the 18th of May, coordinated by the International Council of Museums since 1977. To chat some more, we have on the line Nicholas Wolpe. He's the CEO and founder of the Liliesleaf Trust. The Liliesleaf Farm in Rivonia was where senior ANC members planned the overthrow of the apartheid government and were arrested during a police raid in 1963. The Liliesleaf Farm Museum aims to give its rightful place in South Africa's history. Good afternoon, Nick, and thank you for your time on the SABC News Desk.
Karishni, thank you very much for having me.
Nick, can you just quickly highlight for us the importance of the role of museums as institutions that serve society and its development?
Well, I think it's important that we locate them within the context of places, either they are sites of memory like Liliesleaf or man-made museums like the Apartheid Museum, like the National Portrait Gallery. But I think their fundamental role is to ensure that the past is kept alive in one way or another, that the past is communicated, that the past is presented in a manner which is also relevant today. So our understanding of the past helps us also tackle the challenges that we are confronted with today.
I want to talk about Liliesleaf for a moment. The country celebrates the late Walter Sisulu today, and in fact the commemorative lecture just took place a little while ago in Bloemfontein. Sisulu was arrested along with Govan Mbeki, Raymond Mushlaba, Ahmed Kathrad and others in that raid on Liliesleaf. How do visitors, Nick, get a sense of the traditions and values of these African luminaries and deeply principled leaders who all had such a deep reverence for human life and dignity? How do you keep the legacy of Walter Sisulu alive at the museum today?
Well, I think very simply, we keep it through the voices of individuals who are able to recall that particular period, recall the uniqueness of leaders such as Walter Sisulu, a phenomenal leader, a leader, as you said, typifies, articulates the very essence of what our struggle is about, not only through the voices, but the place itself. People come and the place itself resonates with the aura of these unique individuals. And also the panels, the text panels which tell the story. So it's a combination of these factors that keep the memory of these very unique individuals alive. Plus, in also fulfilling the mandate of a place of dialogue by continuing with that tradition that people like Walter, Wilton McQuay, Oliver Tambo, Govan Mbeki, and all those other luminaries you've expressed, keeping those particular unique features alive.
Nick, how do you think that the majority of South Africans are relating to their history, especially seeing that we have a new generation of people, new generation of South Africans who have a very different relationship with the state than their forebears, and maybe even now lacking an affinity with the state? How do we make sure that the younger generation understand their history and the symbolism of places like Liliesleaf?
Well, I mean, you've just raised a very important point about the relationship to the state, because unfortunately over the last several years the state has come to be seen as a institution of corruption to line the pockets of various individuals. So in the attempt to try and highlight the uniqueness of our history, that is at odds with what people perceive our state to be like, is at odds with what the state is trying to articulate. But going beyond that, actually, there's also some other fundamental issues. One is our byline is the memory against forgetting. We are in a new phase of our struggle, and that struggle is to try and keep the memory of our past alive. And that also ties into the problems that we're experiencing today, the lack of trust that has arisen because of the consequences of the past. But also, we need to understand that history plays a fundamental and important role in our society. We need to tell people that the role of history is not just looking back at the past. It's about going back to the past and pulling it forward, and what that history plays in a number of roles. One, understanding where we are today. Two, building a sense of social cohesion, a sense of belonging, a sense of patriotism, a sense of who we are. And the state also has a responsibility insofar as they must ensure that history becomes a compulsory subject from grade one, that we are taught what I would like to refer to as our African history, which is a holistic approach to our history, not just focusing specifically on our liberation struggle, but on our history going back as far as we can, because it's important that we understand the holistic picture of our society and where we've come from.
And just on that note of garnering a holistic picture of what happened in South Africa, throughout our history, you're also of the belief that a notorious space like Vlakplaas needs to be restored. You've said that because it tells of a particular aspect of our history, regardless of how painful or traumatic that may be. Can you just quickly tell us why you say that, because we are running out of time now?
Well, very quickly, I use the example of the concentration camps dotted around Europe. They become symbols of what man is capable of doing, the brutality that man is capable of inflicting on other human beings, man on man. And Vlakplaas is a representation of that. So Vlakplaas has a role to play by saying, look, this is what we can do to each other if we don't remember the past, if we don't keep the memory of how we can be brutal to one another alive. If we forget, there is always that possibility of it reoccurring again. So any form of site, whether it is a site that is triumphant or a site that highlights the brutality, it is important that we keep those sites alive, because they have particular roles to play within the holistic approach of our understanding and appreciation of our society, where we've come from, where we currently are, and hopefully where we're going in the future.
Nicholas Wolpe, thank you for your time. CEO and founder of the Liliesleaf Trust, joining us on the line.